Okay, we were working on the Shemona Esrei of Shabbos. We're on page 340 in this art scroll. And we got down to the closing of the special paragraph, which is for the Shabbos Tefillos, for all of them. And the closing is Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos, blessed are Hashem who sanctifies the Sabbath. Now, I want to contrast that with what happens on a holiday. So, take a look on page 688 or 689. So, 7 lines down, you have the closing of the blessing, Baruch Atah Hashem. Now, if you leave out the gray, and that gives you what you say on a holiday, Baruch Atah Hashem, Mekadesh, Yisrael v'Hazmanim, the Jewish people and the holidays. There's a word for holidays. So, there's a big contrast. When you're talking about Shabbos, you just say that Hashem is Mekadesh to Shabbos and Yisrael is left out entirely. When it's the holidays, you say Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. And then you see from the gray, if it turns out that the holiday falls on Shabbos, then you say Mekadesh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim, where Yisrael is in between Shabbos and Hazmanim. So the reasoning for this is not exactly obvious on the outset. The simplest reading is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sanctifies the Sabbath. Does that on his own. He creates sanctity by his own agency, and we don't participate at all. We react to it by keeping Shabbos, but we don't participate in it at all. Whereas the holidays, somehow we participate. It's as if it means Kodesh Baruch Hu is Mekadesh us, and then through the fact that he's Mekadesh us, we can participate in being Mekadesh the holidays. So that sets up a fundamental difference between Shabbos and the holidays. And this difference shows up in actual halacha, because how do the holidays get sanctified? What determines in the month of September which day will be Rosh Hashanah? Which 24-hour period will be Rosh Hashanah? So the normal understanding is that there's a procedure in the court. The month starts on the sighting of the new moon, and witnesses come to the court, and they present their testimony, and the court is trained in astronomy, so they can tell when at least sometimes kinds of mistakes are being made, and quizzes them, and then the court accepts the testimony and starts the new month. Of course, Rosh Hashanah is the first day of the month of Tishrei. So you think, well, the start of the month depends upon the moon, because Baruch Hu is running the world, so it's he who, by running the so-called natural world, starts the month by causing the moon to appear. But that's not right. And the reason it's not right is because HaRosh HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem Rosh Chodeshim. No, not Rosh. What's the pasuk where it says Atem? It says Osam, and they darshan it Atem. You are Mekadesh, the new month, and that means you can ignore the moon. The Bezdin can ignore the moon. The witnesses come and they say, we saw the moon. They say, thank you very much, gentlemen, and it's wonderful to see you, and we accept your testimony. We're not starting the month today anyway. starting it tomorrow. They can override the testimony. And on the other hand, it could be that no Eidim come, and you might even know that no Eidim are going to come because it was raining in the whole country of Israel the whole time. And they say, we want to start it now. We're starting it now without the moon. You can decide when it shall start. So it is not determined by the moon. That means we have in our hands the power to dictate, within certain limits, to dictate which 24 hours of history will have the sanctity of being the first day of Pesach, or Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Sukkot. That's utterly unlike Shabbos, because Shabbos was set up by the process of creation. And since the process of creation, that first seventh day, which ended the process of creating new categories, since then, the cycle of 6 days in Shabbos has been continuing, totally independent of any human input whatsoever. So, that's the first layer of understanding the difference between the two of them, that one is Mekadosh Shabbos, the other is Mekadosh Yisrael B'Azmanim. And then, when it turns out that Shabbos and Yom Tov come out together, you get another implication, because how did we say on the holiday is Mekadosh Yisrael B'Azmanim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu sanctifies us, and then through our sanctity we can sanctify the holiday. But follow that logic, that when Shabbos and Yom Tov come out together, it's Mekadosh Shabbos Yisrael B'Azmanim. It means that Shabbos itself gives us a certain sanctity. And then from the Shabbos, the sanctity that Shabbos gives us, we are capable of sanctifying the holidays. And that's also true. So this little piece of vocabulary here encapsulates a tremendously different attitude that we have between Shabbos and Yom Tov. Mayor, you got a question? No, so now let's think a little bit about the holidays and Shabbos. I think you'll see in the themes of them, mostly, this works out pretty directly. And then what seem to be exceptions can get a special explanation. What do you do on Shabbos? What's required for you to do? Now, the trick question, which you can use on kids anyway, is to ask. Imagine a person Friday night makes Kiddush, drinks a cup of wine, and goes to sleep and sleeps for 25 hours. What biblical Shabbos mitzvah did he miss? I don't mean mitzvahs that play all week long, like Kriya Shema or something like that. What biblical Shabbos mitzvah did he miss? The only thing after Kiddush is don't do malacha. He was sleeping, so he didn't do malacha. So it comes out, he didn't miss anything at all. That's a bit shocking. There's nothing else to do on Shabbos that's biblically required. So then you should ask, so what's it about? The Torah has no vision for us other than 30 seconds making Kiddush, and it's over? And the answer is that the Torah has no vision for us to be creative. It doesn't want us to invest the Shabbos with its character by our positive action. After all, Kiddush is just a matter of remembering. It's the verse that commands Kiddush is Zohar. So remember the Shabbos. It has its character in and of itself. It's embedded with character. It's endowed with character of itself, and our job is to receive that character, to receive that influence, to receive that energy, not to create it. Now don't confuse creating versus receiving with active versus passive. That's not a correct equation, because receiving also can be an activity, can be something that you do. Let me give you a vivid image of this. You've spent $4,733 to get a ticket for the Super Bowl, and you're sitting there in the stands waiting for the players to start their football game. And a fellow, one row in front of you, has come with a stack of old newspapers. And he picks up the newspaper, he's reading them one by one, and the game is playing. He said, "Hi, I know how much these seats cost. They cost $4,763. He came here with a stack of newspapers? Reading the newspapers? What's the matter with him?" And when you question him, he says, "Look, you have your life, I have my life. My life is to come to the Super Bowl and read the papers." Okay, great. That means that the game requires looking at. It requires experiencing. Now imagine you make someone a present of a ticket to the Super Bowl and he doesn't know the rules. And he doesn't know the point of the game. He sees them throwing the ball, catching the ball, and tackling and falling down and so on and so on. But he doesn't know what makes him win, what makes someone lose. He's not going to get much out of it. Because it takes knowledge and attention to get what there is to get out of a football game. So the same thing is true with Shabbos. If a person comes into Shabbos dead tired from the week, and he spends most of Shabbos sleeping, well, he didn't do any malacha, but he missed out on what the Shabbos has to offer. So it's a question of active receptivity. Not active versus passive, but active receptivity rather than the active creativity. The holidays, most of them require creativity to give the day its character. So, for example, when we talk about Pesach, the first night is the Seder. The Seder is a many hours long celebration in which specific biblical mitzvahs are done. The rest of the 6 days, the rest of the 7 days, there's a prohibition against eating matzah, any leavened grain material. So those are active performances which create a certain character to the day. Rosh Hashanah, has blowing the shofar. Yom Kippur has the idea of doing tshuva and fasting. Sukkot has living in the sukkah and using the 4 species with the ceremony. All of them have specific commandments which give the day its character. Here's where we participate in making the character of the day. That's utterly foreign to Shabbos. I'm quoting now the Pritzadik, really. It's utterly foreign to Shabbos. In case of Shabbos, what you have is simply to prepare yourself to be able to receive the character of the day. I have 2 male members of my immediate family who make sure to sleep on Friday afternoon. Why should Shabbos be for sleeping? Even though the Gemara seems to say that those who spend their time studying Torah, Shabbos is for rest and relaxation. I don't know, I've asked them about that. I don't know how they exactly explain that, especially as Hasidim. The celebration of Shabbos is very elaborate, very extravagant. In Netanya, by the Tzanzah Hasidim, Friday night you go home and you have a meal with your family. The Tzanzah Rebbe makes Kiddush 4 hours after Lech Benchen, which is 3 hours into Shabbos. That's when he makes Kiddush. I was there. He makes Kiddush, he makes a motzi, and then he speaks for an hour. He speaks for about 40 minutes about Talmud and Talmudic subjects with no books, all from memory. And then he speaks for another 20 minutes about philosophical subjects or Mussar subjects, again, all from memory. And the Hasidim are following him because if he hesitates, they'll finish the sentence for him. So they know where he is. They know what he's doing. And then he starts the meal. And then there's the singing and the shiraim and all the rest. And that means that the whole thing is 3 hours, 4 hours. And the davening the following morning is very long and slow and thought out and felt. The celebration of Shabbos is enormous. A person who's just sleeping through it isn't getting that. But again, you're not creating the character of Shabbos. All of this is meant to open you to the independent character that Shabbos has. Now, there are 3 days, well, 2, let's say 2 days in the Jewish character in the Jewish calendar 2 holidays in which there's no specific mitzvah to do to give it any character. They are Shavuos and Shmini Atzeres. All the individual has to do on those 2 days is don't do malacha, very similar to Shabbos. The list of malachas for a holiday is shorter than the list of malachas for Shabbos, but the only thing that's in the repertoire of the Jew's performance, his participation, is don't do malacha. So the Arizal talks about this. Well, why would they be holidays without the input of a specific mitzvah for the Jew to do to give that day its character? According to the Arizal, you have something extremely profound going on here. Let's take Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres first. If you read the verses carefully, you should register a surprise. The pasuk says for 7 days on Sukkot you should live in the sukkah. 7 days for one day you should take the lulav and esrog. You should live in the sukkah, and on the 8th day, the careful reader will say, "What? It says Sukkot is 7 days. What 8th day? There's a day after the 7 days, but why is it 8? 8th means like there's a unit of 8 days. But there's no sukkah, there's no lulav and esrog, so why is it the 8th day?" Says the Rizal, because it's the culmination of the 7 days. The culmination of the 7 days is an 8th day, of which you don't have the mitzvahs of the 7 days. And the question is, why is that, and what's the idea of it? And the idea of Shavuos is that it's the culmination of Pesach. That's why we count the days from the 2nd day of Pesach until Shavuos, to say that Shavuos is really the culmination of the process that starts on the 1st day of Pesach. And it's wrapped together because there's a midrash that says that Shmini Atzeres really should have been 50 days after the beginning of Sukkot, just like Shavuos is 50 days after the beginning of Pesach. It should have been that way. The midrash doesn't say why it wasn't that way, but I saw one before say because these holidays require pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and in the middle of the winter, which is when 50 days after Sukkot would be, the pilgrimage to Jerusalem is very difficult because it's the rainy season, and it's very difficult to make it there. Whether that's only a superficial symptom, whether the other reasons as well, but the bottom line is, the Medrash is telling you that the relationship of Shmini Atzeres to Sukkot is really the same as the relationship of Shavuos to the 1st day of Pesach. And what is that relationship? So the Shem Shmuel explains what the Arizal is doing. I don't remember how much of this is in the Arizal, but I saw it in the Shem Shmuel in the following way. When you undergo a process of spiritual creativity and you craft for yourself a new spiritual element in your life, when you've stopped the creative period, what is it that would make that element remain with you rather than just dissipate? It is the nature of human creations to dissipate, whether they're physical creations or whether they're spiritual creations or emotional creations. It's the nature to dissipate. The Arizal says, hand it over to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Say to Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'm giving it to you, you take it, and you make it permanent. Human being can't make it permanent on his own. How do you give it over? You cease to be creative. You have a period where you're just receptive but not creative, and that's what happens on those days. And the Shem Shmuel brings 2, I would say, illustrations of this idea. There is a halacha that when you come on the pilgrimage festival to Yerushalayim, you come to the temple and you present your offering in the temple, which is called Riyah, you're appearing in the temple. Don't go home the same day. Stay overnight. This is not a matter of creating a hotel economy in the city of Jerusalem. Because you came to the courtyard of the temple, you appeared in the temple. That's a tremendous elevation. What's going to make that permanent? It needs you to, so to speak, present it to Kodesh Baruch Hu and say, you make it permanent. I'm taking my hands off it. I'm not working on creating it anymore. You make it permanent. And the other illustration for this is something that's very well known, but it's not often put together. Yaakov Avinu, when he left his parents' house, he was charged to go to find a wife. He spent 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. 14 years. Chazal tell us he didn't sleep during that time. Then he went to Haran, to Lavan's house, worked 14 years for his wives, and another 6 years out of chesed to him. But the night in between, the night when he left yeshiva and then the next morning went on to Haran, he went to sleep. That night he went to sleep. And he had the dream of the ladder and the angels going up and down, because Baruch was speaking to him. And then he testifies that the 20 years he was with Lavan, he didn't sleep. But I didn't sleep there. So the question is, if in 34 years he only slept one night, why did he sleep that night? Why did he choose that one night to go to sleep? Says the Shem Shmuel, because he's changing his life position from learning in yeshiva to going to live by Lavan and deal with terrible criminals and trickery and to start a family. It's a shift in the whole quality of his life. He needed a night of sleep, passivity, to make what he had accomplished in yeshiva permanent. And then he can go on to the next stage of life. So this idea of giving it up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and thereby becoming non-creative, as I said now 3 times, not passive, but non-creative, is the way in which you present it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you ask that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should make it permanent. That's why these holidays are different from the other holidays, because they have no mitzvos that set them apart. And you think, what do you mean? Why, Rabbi? On Shavuos we stay up all night, and we learn Torah all night, and we pray at daybreak. What about those mitzvos? Those are very late customs. Maybe 400 years old. But they're not built. They're not even Talmudic. They're customs of much later time. Okay, that's why those holidays look like Shabbos, but they aren't really, because they're a completion. Which means, really, when you talk about the holidays, you shouldn't think in terms of 3. You should think in terms of 2. There's Pesach to Shavuos, which is one axis, and there's Sukkot to Shmini Atzeres, which is a different axis. And that's the way the holidays split up. Now, in addition to that, now I'm going to tell you a Pritzadik. In addition to that, when the Torah commands us to count the days between the first day of Pesach and Shavuos, it designates the time with the words, Usfartem lochem imochras haShabbos. Count from the day after the Shabbos. Which Shabbos is that? Now, the word Shabbos in biblical Hebrew can refer to the holidays, because the holidays are called Shabbos also. The word Shabbos in biblical Hebrew, and really in modern Hebrew also, the word Shabbos means to cease. It means cessation, stopping. It doesn't mean to sit, it doesn't mean to live, and it doesn't mean 7, it means to stop. And it refers specifically to stopping doing malacha. So, qualitatively, that applies to holidays just as much as it does to Shabbos. Shabbos has a longer list of malachos that you don't do, and holidays have a shorter list. But the idea is you stop doing these ordinary physically creative activities on this day, and both Shabbos and the holidays have this character. But the text doesn't give you any indication of what Shabbos that should be. So there's a long discussion in the Gemara about the heretics who wanted to say it was the 7th day of the week and so forth and so on. The bottom line is that it's the first day of Pesach. The day after, first day of Pesach, which means the second day of Pesach, that's when you start counting the 50 days, 49 plus 1, till you get to Shavuos. So, it really is the holiday, and it really is a day for which the word Shabbos can be used, but you don't have to use it. You could have said holiday. So why is it that the Torah chose to use the word Shabbos to indicate the first day of Pesach? And here the Pri Tzadik wants to push the theme that we've been describing to a deeper level. What happened? We were in Egypt for 210 years, and the last 90 or so years we were oppressed. The original prophecy was we were supposed to be there for 400 years. So we left after 210. So one explanation, a major explanation, is that we couldn't have remained there any longer because the suffocating environment of Egyptian culture had almost snuffed out the grip of the Jewish people on its identity. Memtes Shari Tuma, there are 50 gates of defilement, and we had already passed through 49. One more, and it would have been over. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu accelerated the Exodus, Chishev Esaketz, and took us out before the 400 years. So really, what could have, and perhaps would have been preferred to accomplish in a period in Egypt in 400 years, didn't get accomplished. And he took us out, which means the process wasn't finished. So something, irregular took place here, or answering to a higher regularity than what was expected. And that means that it was a gift. Now you look into the Zohar and other places, you see that the first day of Pesach is like saving someone who's drowning. You pull him out and lift him up. You lift him up to a position which he didn't earn. He didn't create for himself. He didn't create it for himself. We've been emphasizing that the holidays are our creativity. This one he didn't create for himself. There were mitzvahs to do. He did the mitzvahs. But the ability to do those mitzvahs and the effects of those mitzvahs on him were not under his control. He's participating, but he's participating in a process that is 98% coming from above. So it's a Shabbosdik holiday. It's a holiday. There are mitzvahs for us to do, but we have to appreciate that the ability to do those mitzvahs and what the mitzvahs accomplish is almost totally a divine gift. And then in the description, what happens is this. That one day lifts you out of the Egyptian context, out of the Egyptian phenomenology of experience, and puts you on a much higher plane. And then, after that day, you are delivered back down to the bottom, and now you have 49 days to climb out on your own. The 49 days are to recreate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you on the first day, but now through your own effort. And that is what means that you have created it on your own, as much as anything is on your own, but not being lifted out 99%. This requires your effort to climb up day by day. And then you're prepared for Shavuos to receive the Torah. So although, as I said, there are mitzvahs to do on the first day, first night, as you know, right? Still, it's a Shabbosdik holiday, and that's why the Torah calls it Menachos HaShabbos. It is a holiday and has the features of a holiday. Yes, we determine when the holiday will start, and overriding the moon. That's certainly true. But the character of the experience is much more Shabbos-like than the other holidays. Let's finish with one more thought, and then I'll take a question. The official terminology for the difference between Shabbos and the holidays is a terminology which applies really across the board in terms of Jewish life, and it is Isurusa de La'ela versus Isurusa de Lasata. Isurusa de La'ela means that the initiation of the contact, the initiation of the relationship, the initiation of the process comes from above, versus Isurusa de Lasata, which means it comes from below. Shabbos is Isurusa de La'ela in spades, because Baruch Hu made it entirely without our interaction whatsoever. First day of Pesach is somewhat that way, Isurusa de La'ela, because of the fact that he raised us up to that level, which we didn't really earn. The rest of the holidays are much more Isurusa de Lasata. And these two terms are used to classify many other mitzvos and many other experiences. It's not just for here. there's a two-dimensional Jewish experience in terms of the way in which interactions get initiated. And it should, I hope it's obvious, but I'll mention my rabbis that taught us to be careful about this. Even when the initiation starts from below, it's not totally from below. Because Baruch says, who preceded me and I should pay him for him starting the process. But there's start and start. You know, if I send you an email and I ask you to follow certain instructions, all the activity is yours. I just sent you the email. That's not the same as my making the foundation and working side by side with you, shoulder to shoulder, and so forth and so on. That's not the same. So the majority of the active part is what we put in. That's where it be Isus Gilsata, and where Kosh Baruch Hu puts it in like Shabbos, but to a certain extent the first day of Pesach, that's where Isus Gilsata. Yeah, but man.
I just wanted to understand how those Shabbos comes into the picture when we are building the process of the Omer, and then there's Shabbos. I mean, we were in the middle of a creative process, and then there's Shabbos, which means...
You mean the different Shabbos each week?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's an interesting point. If you look into the right kind of siddur, you'll see this is a Sephardi siddur or a Hasidic siddur. You know, I think the Art Scroll has adopted this from them and put it into the Ashkenazi siddur also. You have the 49 days, and the 49 days are based on a double subdivision of 7. Mm-hmm. There are 7 characteristics. Each week is dedicated to a characteristic, 1 through 7, and then each day of each week is dedicated also to one of those 7 characteristics. So, and it's so you run through all 7. Now, when you each run through a week, you've run through the 7 subcategories of one particular characteristic. You're finishing that characteristic. Yeah. So you can have a 6+1 structure there as well. This won't be the Shabbos of the week. Won't be the Shabbos of the week, but it'll be the 7-7-7-7 structure of the 49, where we'd have that. That the Shabbos Bereishis, I don't think interacts there. Not as far as I know. They'll come out differently each year. It'll come out differently vis-a-vis the days of the sphere. The last point to make here is the famous Gemara in Shabbos, which says, if you look carefully at the verses that introduce the revelation at Sinai, there's a little bit of a tension between 2 verses. Kosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, sanctify the people for 2 days, I will appear on the mountain on the 3rd day. And then it says, Moses sanctified the people for 3 days. Well, you could say, yeah, 3 days, 2 days of sanctification before the appearance, and the 3rd day of the sanctification is the appearance. You could say that. And some do say that. But one of the Tanoim says, no, Moshe Rabbeinu changed it. Because Baruch Hu said, prepare for 2 and I'll appear on the 3rd. Moshe Rabbeinu said, no. I want the people to prepare for 3 and you should appear on the 4th. And because Baruch Hu said, okay, you've asked for it, I give it to you. And the question is, what difference does it make? Why does Moshe Rabbeinu want to delay it by a day? So again, the Shem Shmuel says the following word. He says, according to, it's either all or all but one opinions, we received the Torah on Shabbos. That's when it actually got it. So according to this explanation, that because Baruch Hu said 2+1, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, I want 3+1, because Baruch Hu agreed, because Baruch Hu's plan was to give the Torah on Friday. Right? It really ended up on Shabbos. That's because he added an extra day. Had he not added the extra day, it would have been Friday. So because Baruch's idea was to give it on Friday, Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, I don't want it on Friday. I want it on Shabbos. Why? What's the magic of Shabbos? Says the Shem Shmuel, because Shabbos is Isrusa de La'ela, because it comes from above. And here's the thought. This is a chiddush of the Shem Shmuel. Let's think what Kodesh Baruch Hu's plan was. He's going to give it on Friday. Why Friday? Why not Tuesday? Why not Wednesday? Tell you why. Because the verse tells us, Ani amarti Elohim atem uvnei yom kulchem. I said you're like angels, children of the Most High. When we stood at Sinai to receive the Torah, death had departed from us. We became not subject to death. And it's Friday. And he's giving us the Torah. Does that recall some other date in history which had the same characteristics? How about the date of the creation of Adam? It was created on Friday. And when he was created without facing death. And because Baruch Hu gave him commandments on that day. Says Hashem Yishmuel, the plan was to reenact the creation, and this time to get it right. To fix what had happened before, under similar conditions, and get it right. That was the plan. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's the plan. What if they fail? Will the outcome be the same outcome as before? That they'll be kicked out, disconnected, cut off? I don't want that plan. I want to have security. I want to have an insurance policy that if indeed they fail, they'll still be connected. I want it on Shabbos. Because Shabbos is Isus de La'ela. Shabbos is what you make from your side without our participation. If you give it on Shabbos, it's going to be permanent no matter what. And because Baruch Hu said yes. And that's why, when the failure of the golden calf took place, it didn't cause a rupture in our relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And by the way, if you will ask, in the Garden of Eden, wasn't there the snake? We had the same thing. We had the Erev Rav, which played exactly the same role as the snake. Okay, it requires a lot of detail and attention. But at any rate, here's again the difference between Isus Leil and Isus Lasata. If it happens on Friday, the way Kodesh Baruch Hu planned, we have an equal partnership in making it exist. If we have a partnership making it exist and we fail and we deteriorate, then it's lost. If it's Kodesh Baruch Hu's action that makes it exist and we just receive it, then if we fail, it's not going to threaten it in the same way. Now, this is a fundamental concept of Torah, of Jewish life. And as I say, the things that you do can be classified as one or the other. A lot of the Mishnah is devoted to that. That's what's behind these few words in the closing of the middle blessing of Shabbos and Yom Tov. You had another question, Mayor?
No, because the whole thing, it makes sense that all the Chagim we have since Rosh Chodesh. I mean, we have a way to bring to order the time, to fix it the time, right?
That's right.
But so that's why the Zmanim works that way, but everything else is.
That's right. It's the fact that we can determine the beginning of the month, which fixes that. I'm just thinking now. 1 second. Yeah, there's one other feature that's in the relationship of Shavuos to Pesach, which fixes it in an unmistakable way. All the holidays that we have in our calendar have a fixed calendar date, the such and such day of such and such month, except for Shavuos. When the court was in charge of starting the new months, each month could be either 29 or 30 days. Between Pesach and Shavuos, there are two fixings of the month. So, in principle, the number of days between Pesach and Shavuos could be 49, 50, or 51. And that means it could come out we have it on the 6th of Sivan. It could have been the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th. From year to year, it would vary. Sometimes it's the 5th, sometimes the 6th, sometimes the 7th. It's the only holiday whose identity is not fixed by the date of the month. That shows you that it is a capstone for Pesach. That's its definition. Because the date of the month does not dictate its occurrence. It's not because it's the 6th of the month. Not because it's the 5th of the month. Because of the 50th day from Pesach. And the same thing should have been true for Shmini Atzeres.
And there's also the idea of the whole thing that we build through the week, so to get to Shabbat, and then is it like, I mean, of course, Shabbat is entirely in its own, but we do have to build ourselves to be able to receive Shabbat, no? Like
100%. In fact, actually, the Shem Shmuel, the Prisadik quotes the pasuk, "La'asos Shabbos, l'doros bris olam." Right? They should make for themselves the Shabbos. Now he asked the question: if on Shabbos itself all you're doing is not doing malacha, what does it mean to make the Shabbos? And it means to undergo the preparation which makes it possible for you to receive what the Shabbos has to give. That's the active part. The active part is opening yourself up, but not creating the character of Shabbos. Opening yourself up to. Maybe I'll tell you. When I was in high school, there was. I guess it was in the art department. They took us to the opera, and we prepared for it by listening to the music, and by painting pictures of one of the scenes. That's how we prepared for going to the opera. Now, if you don't understand how human psychology works, you'd say, once you listen to it 4 times, like, wouldn't it be boring to go and actually hear it again? But no. I happened to be participating in classical music, but a lot of the kids weren't. And the music was unfamiliar to them. It wasn't easy to listen to, wasn't easy to appreciate. The fact that they listened to it meant that when they heard it played live, they could understand it and relate to it and receive it in a way that they otherwise couldn't. If you actually go through the process of painting a picture, so you look at the libretto, this is what's going on. We didn't take pictures of productions, we didn't look it up online. This was in the Middle Ages, in the 50s. So you had to envision in your mind, he's standing here and he's standing here, he's shooting at him over there, this one drops dead over here, opera. Right? And then you paint it, so you've already pictured it in your mind. You go with all that background, you're much better prepared to receive what the experience has to give you. Same thing's true. Let's say you prepare the parsha. When you hear the parsha read, that's what Rashi says, and that's what the Ramban says, and that's what David Ezra says. And then there's something discussed at the table. It crystallizes it for you, and the songs and the rest. It's something that you're prepared with. If you heard a new nigun, and you come to the meal and you say, "Listen, I heard this new beautiful nigun. I'll teach it to you." All that makes it possible for you to receive what the Shabbos has to give you because you're prepared for it. So indeed, that's what's going on. It's preparing of yourself to receive what the Shabbos has to give. Okay, I think what I'm going to do next time, do we have in this siddur is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Probably not.
I think there is the Selichot before Yom Kippur, but...
No, they don't have I have to try to get hold of it. I want to go through the middle part of the Shemona Esrei for Yom Kippur, the part that's in common to all of them. I'm not going to do the long Musaf, but that's what I like to do. So we'll have to try to get hold of that for tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.